Gentlemen, shalom. I'm David Mencer from the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem. Today, Monday, the 22nd of June, 2026. I've got a couple of points to share with you, and then we'll go straight to your questions. Firstly, on Lebanon, I feel there is a fair bit of misunderstanding about why Israel is conducting their military action in Lebanon. Let me break it down for you. Now, there's a reason why we are risking soldiers' lives, risking and losing our soldiers' lives. There's a reason why we are maintaining a military presence inside Lebanon. And that reason is because Hezbollah terrorists chose to enter the conflict and open fire towards Israel, because Hezbollah are shooting at us. Precisely that. Hundreds of rockets and rockets fired at northern Israel, suicide drones, hundreds of one-way suicide drones aimed at our people and our soldiers. So what does that mean? It means that in one of the greenest, most beautiful parts of Israel, the Galilee in northern Israel, that Israeli mothers and fathers are not able to go to work, that Israeli kids aren't able to go to school, that Israelis have a scant few seconds, sometimes 10 seconds, to scurry for shelter for incoming rockets, missiles, and drones. And that for hundreds of thousands of Israelis, hundreds of thousands of people, our citizens are not able to maintain a normal life. Now, just a few minutes ago, the Prime Minister has given a new directive to Israel's defense forces and our soldiers in southern Lebanon, and they are very clear, and they indeed have not changed at all. Israel's forces have full freedom of action, said the Prime Minister just a moment ago, to thwart any direct or emerging threat to them or to our residents in northern Israel. So let me say that again. Israel's forces have full freedom of action to thwart any direct or emerging threat to them or to the residents of northern Israel. Now, the Prime Minister went on to say that the entire nation stands behind our forces, that the IDF faces no restrictions in this regard, and that the Prime Minister and Israel remain steadfast in our position, that we will stay in the security zone in southern Lebanon for as long as necessary in order to protect the residents of the north and all the citizens of Israel. Now, just last night, the Prime Minister said that this is what any country would do when attacked with rockets and drones. It would do precisely what Israel is doing. And those that are criticizing us would do well to think what would happen if their countries were attacked. This is what they would do. They would cross the border, they would create a security zone, they would aim to kill the terrorists and protect its people until that threat is removed. Now, when it comes to civilian casualties, the Prime Minister also made clear last night that no army goes to such lengths that the Israeli army does to target terrorists and minimize civilian casualties. Of course, every civilian and unintended casualty is a tragedy, but the Prime Minister said that the ratio is a remarkable 5-to-1. That means 5 terrorists are killed to every civilian that is harmed in the process. I say again, of course, all civilian casualties are a tragedy, but Israel should be commended for it and not condemned, as in so many parts of the media and the world. Now, Israel is engaging on US-mediated talks. They're happening over the next few days with Lebanon, directly with Lebanon. And the purpose of these talks are disarming Hezbollah and achieving a genuine peace agreement. They're taking place right now, over the next few days in DC. The severe damage actually inflicted on Hezbollah has created a new reality in Lebanon, and that has opened a window for this potential historic agreement. As the Prime Minister has made clear, Israel's war is not with Lebanon, the state of Lebanon. It is with Hezbollah that terrorizes Lebanon and seeks our destruction. Now, the Prime Minister also said last night that when a proxy when the Iranian Hezbollah, the proxy of Iran, is no longer a threat, when it is dismantled, when it is disarmed, and yes, then we will have peace with Lebanon. And the Prime Minister said very clearly that he looks forward to signing that agreement. Okay, that's the end of our briefing here today. I can now take a few questions. I can see some questions in the chat. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll take some of them. Roy, can I ask you to put that first graphic up? Okay, question here from Or Shaked from Israel Hayom. And that question is, yesterday, a deconfliction cell regarding Lebanon was announced by Qatar and Pakistan as part of the US-Iranian talks. What's your response? Does that mean that the arenas are now relinked? Will this potentially mean more constraints on Israeli defensive strikes? And we've got, I think, practically the same question from CNN, from Dana Carney from CNN. Can I ask, how does Israel view this new mechanism to manage Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire that Vice President Vance announced today? And what is the government's reaction to Iran being part of this mechanism? Thank you for that. Well, let me answer your question this way. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty convinced that the terrorist organization whose logo that you can see right over here next to me, just so you can see it quite clearly, I'm not convinced that a terrorist organization whose logo is a machine gun are going to become peaceniks. And I don't think a terrorist organization whose name means the party of God are going to take much notice of a memorandum which has been signed. Their logo features also, you'll see, a machine gun and a picture of the globe. These are jihadists who want to take over the world. Now, in conjunction with the statement which the Prime Minister has just released just now, which answers this question comprehensively, Israel is not party of this MOU or of the negotiations with Iran. And I can tell you that Israel and Lebanon are two sovereign states, and we're conducting direct negotiations with each other, but between each other, brokered by the US. Now, when it comes to Qatar and Pakistan, you know, they can agree with Iran on whatever they want, but the Prime Minister and the President, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump, both agree that Israel and the US will not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. The Prime Minister dealt with this point, and I dealt with this point at the beginning of our briefing. The objective of our sovereign nation is to defend our borders. The lesson of October the 7th is extremely clear. We will not allow a genocidal force, terrorist force, anywhere near our border, which is why Hezbollah has no place anywhere near our border and must be disarmed for the good of Israel and for the good of peace with Lebanon. Okay, I hope that deals with that question. Next question I can see here is from Reuters, Stephen Shear. How much is Israel at odds with the United States on its stance on staying in southern Lebanon and saying it would operate freely against Hezbollah? Thank you very much for that question, Stephen. I think I've already dealt with it. We've told you very, very clearly about our objective here. It is to stop Hezbollah from firing upon us. And that is the reason that Hezbollah, the Hezbollah terrorists chose to enter this conflict. You should know, of course, that Lebanon and Iran are completely unconnected. They have no border connection. This is just an attempt by Iran to put pressure on Israel. And as a sovereign nation, our responsibility is when Hezbollah are shooting at us, thousands, hundreds of rockets and hundreds and hundreds of suicide drones aimed at our people and our people, we have a responsibility to defend our nation. That is the sovereign, the primary responsibility of any state, to defend our own people. Next question here is from Dalia Scheindlin from Haaretz. How is Israel trying to engage with the Americans to advance its interest in the US-Iran talks for a nuclear deal? Thank you for that question, Dalia. You probably know, because we've said it many times, the Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump have known each other for decades and decades and decades. They can disagree on certain points, but the ultimate objective of our war against Iran is to ensure that Iran can never get a nuclear weapon. And on that, they are precisely aligned. And that's why they keep reminding the world of that. And while we're on this subject, can I just remind our viewers as well, the journalists on this call, it is Iran that says that they wish to destroy Israel. There is no other country in the world that openly states that they wish to destroy another sovereign state. That is Iran, which is why the Prime Minister has made crystal clear that Israel will not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, because Iran say very, very clearly what they want to do with them. They wish to destroy their country. When they say these things, Israel believes them. We do believe them, which is why that we are positive that one of the effects of the war against Iran was precisely to stop this gaining of nuclear weapons, and that which is why the Prime Minister has said very, very clearly, in this war, we have prevented Iran from carrying out a plan to annihilate us. So that means today they would have had a nuclear weapon and an atomic bomb. Okay, we have, Israel, together with our allies the US, have prevented that from happening. We have removed that existential danger. And had we not acted, had Israel and the US not acted that way, in Roaring Lion and previously in Rising Lion, then Iran would have had atomic bombs, and they would have used them. And that is precisely what the Israeli-US action has prevented. Okay, next question here is from Matt Bradley from NBC. Given the White House criticism of Israel and Israel's lack of involvement in the talks leading up to the Memorandum of Understanding, how is Israel hoping to have its voice heard in the negotiations that have just begun? Thank you for that question, Matt. But we're not a party to the Memorandum of Understanding, but we are, of course, a sovereign state. And a sovereign state's responsibility is to protect its borders and to protect its people. That is precisely what we are doing. That is precisely what any country, a decent country, would do, protect its own citizens. And that is precisely what Prime Minister Netanyahu has pledged to do. The Prime Minister and President Trump are extremely close. They can have day-to-day disagreements, but ultimately the strategy is the same, that Iran cannot get any nuclear weapons. Okay, last question I can see here is from Julia Frankel from AP. I think it's the same question, but I'll read it for you anyway, Julia. US Vice President Vance said that this is not a deal that America is imposing on the region, but that countries have desperately asked the United States to put in place. Given that Israel is not invited to be part of the negotiations regarding the conflict with Hezbollah, does Netanyahu agree with that point? Thank you for that question, Julia. As I've mentioned before in this briefing, we're not a signatory, we're not a party to this Memorandum of Understanding, but we are party to our own survival. That's what the persecution of the Jewish people has taught this nation. When someone says that they wish to destroy you, we believe them. The purpose of this country is to defend its citizens, and that is what the Prime Minister is completely focused on doing. Indeed, that is what any Prime Minister, any decent Prime Minister would be committed to doing. The Prime Minister and the President have known each other for decades and decades and decades. They can have disagreements, minor disagreements, but ultimately they are completely aligned. They are completely aligned on this main point, that Iran can never get nuclear weapons. Israel's army and Israel's nation are full square behind the Prime Minister to ensure that this country is not threatened by a nuclear Iran. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here which have come through. I'll take them quickly. Jan Bourgard from Axel Springer. According to Jerusalem Post, the IDF is considering transferring control of Hezbollah's underground compounds to the Lebanese army. Israel reportedly believes that doing so could test the Lebanese army's ability and willingness to act against Hezbollah, according to N12. Can you confirm these reports? If so, does this reflect a new Israeli strategy towards Lebanon? And could responsibility to Lebanon's army, could it serve as a test for the ability and willingness to act against Hezbollah? Israel believes that transferring this to the Lebanese army could serve as a test of its ability and willingness to act against Hezbollah. Thank you for that question, Jan. I'm not precisely sure what the question you're asking is, but I've made clear during this briefing that Israel is not a signatory to the MOU, and Israel is not a signatory to any of these discussions. But Israel and the US are completely aligned. The Prime Minister and the President are completely aligned when it comes to ensuring that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. When it comes to Lebanon, the Prime Minister just released a statement just a few moments ago. It's been released online through the usual ways, and the Prime Minister says very, very clearly that our objective in Lebanon is to ensure that Hezbollah are dismantled and disarmed. Why do we wish for that to happen? For two reasons. Number one, after October the 7th, we will never allow a genocidal terrorist force to be anywhere near our borders. And number two is because Hezbollah have been firing at us hundreds of drones, hundreds of missiles, hundreds of anti-tank missiles. They've killed our soldiers and they've killed our civilians as well. They threaten the lives of thousands of Israel's citizens as well, the northern portion of this country, and no country would put up with that. Now, I mentioned to you that there are discussions taking place in Washington directly between Israel and Lebanon under the auspices of the United States and the State Department. We want those discussions to succeed, but as in the past, as in the ceasefire which was negotiated back in 2024, Iran, Hezbollah was supposed to have been disarmed. Hezbollah was supposed to have been disarmed by the Lebanese army. Now, whether through lack of will or lack of ability, that did not happen, which is why Israel has pushed Hezbollah right back. That's why we've pushed them right back. Now, I won't preempt those discussions as they're going ahead. We want an agreement with Lebanon. We feel that there is no reason why an agreement with Lebanon cannot be taken forward. The only impediment is the terrorist organization of Hezbollah, which is why we believe that they should be disarmed and dismantled. Now, however that happens, then obviously Israel will be in favor of that, whether it's through diplomacy or whether it's through military force. In our experience, it normally turns up to be a connection, a conflagration between those two options. But the Prime Minister has made crystal clear, he did it just now, he did it last night in a speech in English, which you can see for yourself. Israel will not be threatened by Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization. So however Hezbollah are dismantled, their terrorist tunnels and their arms and their drones are dismantled, and however Hezbollah are disarmed, that would be a positive thing for all of the people in this region, obviously not the terrorist organization. Okay, another question here from Orsha Ked from Israel Hayom. This will be the last question now. Is Israel concerned that the US general license on Iranian oil, including dollar payments, insurance, and shipping services, gives Tehran meaningful sanctions relief while negotiations are ongoing? Thank you for that question, or Shaked from Israel Hayom. Look, Israel is not a party to this deal. Israel is not a party to the Memorandum of Understanding. The Prime Minister's made the case particularly clear when it comes to making deals with Iran. The Prime Minister has made clear that this is a path which the President is going down. Israel's not party to this agreement, but we have seen with every other agreement when it comes to the Iranian regime, they always lie, they always cheat, they never tell the truth. Ultimately, our objective is absolutely clear that everyone should know. There should be no ability for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Okay, that's the last question. There's one more question. The last question which has come in here from Hussein from Iran International. What if the Islamic Republic regime manages, under the pressure by US on Israel, to establish a so-called unity of fronts? What Israel's actions will be? Would Israel be willing to attack Hezbollah inside Lebanon, including Dahya, at the expense of Iran-US Memorandum of Understanding, even it's being construed as sabotaging the interim deal? Thank you for that question, Hussein. As I've mentioned to you before, we're not a party to this deal, which is why the Prime Minister said just a few moments ago, and he made this clear, and this has probably been published right now, we have a responsibility to defend our northern citizens. That's precisely what we're doing, which is why the Prime Minister has given a directive to Israel's defense forces and our soldiers in southern Lebanon, and they are clear that they have not this guidance has not changed. Israel's forces have full freedom of action to thwart any directive, to thwart any direct or emerging threat to this country or to our forces or to the residents of northern Israel. Let me say that again. Israel's forces have full freedom of action to thwart any direct or emerging threat to them or to the residents of northern Israel. Now, the Prime Minister has the entire nation behind him when he says these things. The IDF faces no restrictions in this regard. They have a responsibility to defend our citizens. That is precisely what they are doing. And the Prime Minister has also said that Israel will remain steadfast in our position, that we will stay in the security zone in southern Lebanon for as long as necessary in order to protect the residents of the north and all of the citizens of Israel. And as the Prime Minister said last night, that is precisely what America would do if they were targeted in this way, as we've been targeted by this terrorist organization, and it's precisely what we are doing. Okay, that's the last question today. Thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing again soon. In the meantime, please do stay safe. You can contact us in the usual way for any questions or interview requests. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
You're doing great.
תודה רבה.
Of course. Good endurance on